Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Do you ever get the feeling the WNBA is just some massive circus, some bizarre circus? Not the cool kind, like maybe more like the kind of a creepy horror movie kind of circus, because it's constantly something that is in the news that has nothing to do with the basketball. Surprisingly, this story includes Chicago Sky guard Nathan Cloud. Sorry, Natasha Cloud. I get those confused. I get it confused sometimes because like the deep voice and the attitude and the F this and the F that and the muscles and all of that. So, but I believe it is Natasha, not Nathan. Certainly not to be confused with Natasha Romanoff from the Avengers. I'm sorry. Was that mean? Should I not talk like that? Who cares? So anyway, I want to take it back a few days, a story I didn't even report on. I go back and forth on on whether to report on some of this stuff, but this I think is going to be an ongoing problem for the WNBA, and it's going to have massive implications before the 2027 season. But we're going to take it back before we get into the current issue of what happened, because it's interesting. This is coming from Natasha Cloud, so y'all might know this by now. A few days ago, one of those green hot dogs appeared on the court at a basketball game. Again, I believe it was Sky Dream basketball game. And Natasha Cloud got big time up in her feels after the game. I'm sure this is shocking to no one. And I'm not going to play the video because her rant would not get accepted on YouTube. If anyone played it, I'd be shocked. They might find, a few months down the line themselves getting in trouble, as happens sometimes. But anyway, Natasha Cloud talking about the green hot dog thrown onto the court. You lame as F. You come to a women's game to throw a dildo onto the court. That's the gayest. And I'm not sure, but I don't think she means happiest frap, she didn't say that, of course, that I have ever heard. She went on then to say that men who do this are extremely weak and probably closeted homosexuals. So Natasha Cloud went on what many could describe as a very specific phobic rant and using a slur against a certain community that, can you imagine an NBA player doing this? That suspension would come before they got off the podium at the post-game press conference. Has anything happened to Natasha Cloud? No, nothing. Not even a statement from the WNBA that what she said is unacceptable. Not even getting her to go out and apologize. But hey, Sandy Brundello calling Angel Reese a protected species because of the calls she gets, because of the whistle she gets, which is a very accurate statement and nothing more, that gets a one-game suspension and a week in the news about her being a racist. But these words from Natasha Cloud, nothing happens. Again, WNBA is a circus, and not in a good way. It's always something. Now, of course, this happened at the Indiana Fever game because these women are so damn desperate for attention of any kind that they're always going to make a spectacle of themselves at an Indiana Fever game. We will never have just a basketball game. I shouldn't say never. We do get those rare moments when we have just a basketball game, unless, of course, you take the officiating into consideration. But yeah, so Natasha Cloud decided she was going to get all up in her feels last night with the Fever game with Enes Kanter Freedom attending. Natasha Cloud decided that she was going to make a spectacle of herself and start yapping at Enes Kanter Freedom, and then he gets tossed out of the game for we really don't know what reason, because he was just sitting at the game with a t-shirt, which I will show you, but apparently this is something I guess that is not allowed. But let's take a look at the clip. Natasha's yapping all the way from the other side of the court, making a spectacle of herself, yelling at Enes Kanter Freedom. So, of course, he gets up out of his seat and stands there like, hey, okay, what's the problem? And security immediately goes to him to usher him out. He's not doing anything. that'd be a guy I'd be going in the lawsuit like, "Get your hands off me." Then this little, punk secure really secure so you gotta get some more security people that look the part, my man. Get your hands off of me. Woman, noun, adult, human, female. That is all that is on his shirt, and we are going to make a spectacle of this. And again, just like everything else that's coming out of Natasha Cloud's mouth, I couldn't play audio for you. I haven't heard audio of the game, but if you read her lips, you can see some of the things she's saying. Not stuff you want when kids are around. WNBA games, I'll tell you that is one of the reasons they're so angry. They never were family friendly. They might be used to influence children, which is why they want children there. See Toronto Tempo mascot, current mascot, but family friendly, children friendly, not in any way, shape, or form. So Enos, of course, gets tossed out of the game. And this is going to be ongoing for the WNBA. They don't seem to understand what is going on, that they have put themselves in a very, very difficult position because they have now set it up there no matter what decision they make with all of this, it's going to look bad. It's going to end bad. Do you let him into the league? And if not, why not? Because you've got all your players saying, "Yeah, man, we support men in the WNBA." So the whole thing is self-identification, right? So how do you then now say, "Oh, well, not him," right? That's an impossible standard. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with the WNBA going forward. But of course, this became big news, which is why I decided to do this video because it's going to be an ongoing thing. And then, of course, you've got all the clowns out there saying weird things in support of RG3, Robert Griffith the third, who has four daughters, decided to, repost a video and say Enes Kanter is causing more harm and damage to the women he claims he is trying to protect. This is lame. Of course, people went after him. What's the harm and damage that he's causing? Robert, of course, cannot define those things or answer that question because he's just trying to virtue signal and get a pat on the back from a certain group of people, I guess, who support men in women's sports. And for those who don't know, real simple, this goes no further than this for me. I don't know. Maybe I'm supposed to be more nuanced nowadays, but I'm a pretty sane human being. So my whole thing is, well, boys don't play girls' sports. Men don't play in women's sports. That's it. And a lot of people are going to think that I am a hateful, phobic bigot for that. I don't know. I can't help you. I think you belong in an asylum if you feel that way. That's just that is the end of that. But and like I said, he can't define it as one post said, what's lame is the league can and won't define what a woman is, and they've gone out of their way to protect men and women's spaces. Robert Griffin III, Enos stepping up and approaching the court to challenge a WNBA player while courtside of the game is not standing up for women. It's lame no matter what side of the issue was on. Of course, he got reamed for that because that is not actually what happened. Cloud went up to him, and you know that. Again, what's lame is a mocking and taunting Sophie Cunningham game after game, as well as refusing to define what a woman is. Enos isn't the problem. And then, he says, someone else says, enjoy the ratio, Robert. So we got a lot of virtue signals like that. And again, that's what I'm saying. The WNBA has put themselves in this position. The players have put themselves in this position where it's kind of a can't win. You promise you there will be a lawsuit if they prevent Enes Kanter Freedom from playing, and they don't want a lawsuit. Okay, they don't want the discovery process with all of this and what the WNBA has been up to. You had Chris Williamson, who's nothing but a hardcore racist rage baiter. He reposted it and said, "This is on Sophie Cunningham, and I will not be explaining any further." Well, of course you won't, because your position is idiotic and it's a stupid thing to say. And again, he got reamed in the comments as well. There was one yeah, and one I wanted to point out because and yet you did, because someone posted a screenshot of when he posted that, and then a little later he posted the moment the league didn't discipline Sophie Cunningham for her phobic comments, they set the table for almost all of this political discourse and nastiness towards the community. Her conduct has objectively been detrimental to the league. These people are unhinged. That is what I want to expose. Think about what he's saying. Sophie Cunningham was asked a question by ESPN in an interview. And instead of avoiding it, she answered it. And she answered it very simply: boys don't belong in girls' sports. Period. That was it. And you just heard me say what Chris Williamson posted about that. Think about that. Sophie Cunningham, he's saying, should be disciplined for saying in an interview in response to a specific question that she doesn't think boys should be in girls' sports. But Angel Reese and her repeated lies and accusations, nothing happens. Natasha Cloud and her slurs and phobic comments toward the gay community, nothing happens. Dejanay Carrington on video telling her friends to vandalize a man's car and then falsely accusing him of attempted kidnapping, nothing happens. We could go on and on and on and on, right? Alyssa Thomas and what she did happened on the court, not even a foul called on the court. But Sophie Cunningham in an interview saying, hey, yeah, I don't think boys should play in girls' sports. That's a problem for Chris Williamson. These people are absolute lunatics. And I think they're really, really angry because they've put themselves in a no-win situation, right? Gabby Williams a couple weeks ago was like, "Oh, I welcome men in the WNBA." Of course, she didn't say men, but that is what they are. I wonder if Gabby would say the same thing if someone had the courage to ask her specifically about Enes Kanter freedom, because then the question comes up, well, you've spent all of this time these past few years saying, well, if a man says they're a woman, they are. Okay, well, then why is Enos an exception to that? And who are you to make that decision? Man, this is going to get interesting, folks. It'll be really wild if this gets into the courts. But anyway, let me know your thoughts. Like, comment, subscribe. I will talk to you later.